Whoa, 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 whoa. Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Smile album, A Light for Attracting Attention. Yes, this is the debut full-length album of the recently formed musical project, The Smile, featuring drummer of the band Sons of Kemet, Tom Skinner, and also two dudes from a little-known band called Radiohead, Johnny Greenwood, as well as Tom York. Even Nigel Godrich is in the mix doing production on this one, as he has on many a Radiohead project. The band teased the hell out of this 13-track project with 6 singles that portrayed a wide range of sounds. The track You Will Never Work in Television Again is a very peppy alt-rock throwback that sounds like something that Tom and the boys would have aggressively recorded back in the 90s. The whole track is electrifying, the building intensity behind the drums, the driving guitars, plus I didn't know Tom really had this kind of vocal performance in him anymore at this point. Now, even though there's no other track on this LP that sounds quite like this one, it does have a characteristic about it that holds true for the majority of this album, that being the slowly building and swelling layers of whatever instrumentation are brought into the fold as the track is progressing. In this case, it's the woodwinds that kind of call out chaotically at various points of the song, which I love. There's also the meditatively groovy The Smoke, where Tom's chilly falsettos punctuate drums, guitar lines, and horn sections that sound like a mellowed out version of some 70s West African funk rock fusion. Skinner's beats on this track strike a perfect balance between sounding relaxed but also very tight, and Johnny Greenwood's trademark arrangements are a beautiful touch to the song too. I do wish the track structure-wise had a stronger conclusion to it, but it's a great listen while it's on. Then there was Skirting on the Surface, which honestly sounds kind of like a bad demo from the In Rainbows era, with all these linear guitar lines and grooves, which in theory are nice, but the drumming is far too loose to kind of carry the track rhythmically. Not only that, but the guitar work is kind of sloppy. I guess at least the arrangements sort of cover up whatever blemishes we're getting off of that. Really, Tom York's vocal performance is the only thing I found to be truly redeeming about the cut, but it's not like he is really pushing himself out of his comfort zone on this track in any way. This kind of sounds like a song that he sung years ago at this point. I think In Rainbows fans will have a lot more fun getting lost in the incredibly tight and endless grooves of Thin Thing. Meanwhile, Pana-Vision, even though this track has some linear qualities to it too, it does conjure a very different sensation, slowly falling into this twisted and depressive spiral of ascending piano phrases and massive orchestral hits. We do get another ending on this track that sort of trails off, but at least the first half is quite a potent listen. Then Free in the Knowledge is a somewhat tragic but also hopeful acoustic cut that has a high drama, Floydian quality to it, a somewhat hippie-esque message of unity packed into the song too, with Tom singing about people fighting, but eventually coming to this realization that there is a greater power or evil that is working against all of us. The song does have some beautiful instrumentation as well as a powerful performance attached to it, which I think definitely overcomes whatever bits of it are kind of cliche. And from here, that leaves us with the deep cuts on this record. The same and the opposite are a decent 1-2 punch for the entire LP to kick off with. The former with its patient and throbbing electronics building up into this intense sense of dread. Once again, with images of people fighting, with Tom York calling out about how we're all the same and we all want the same things, which I'm not exactly sure what he's referring to. Is it the general political unrest of the last several years, or is this more of an allegory? I mean, there is certainly truth to what he's saying, because as people, I think we do have many of the same core desires and needs, but the shortcoming from there is just in the fact that this track is not a sociological exploration as to where these divisions come from, what informs them. I will say this though, the song sounds horrifying. It nails that down. And then the opposite, the incredible grooves on this track are presented in a somewhat surreal and psychedelic way, with all these cavernous echoes and sound effects orbiting the grooves. It gets especially discordant and exciting through a series of noisy passages in the second half. Then Speech Bubbles and Open the Floodgates are two kind of chill numbers in the middle of the LP. The latter kind of sounds like a bland, piano-backed holdover from the Moon-Shaped Pool era. It is moody and it's serene for sure, but there's not a lot about it texturally or melodically that sticks with me. But Speech Bubbles does undergo quite the transformation across its runtime. The bare organs and gentle drums right at the intro kind of set things up for what feels like it's going to be a religious experience. The guitar arpeggios and string passages that follow in the midpoint with Thom Yorke's very desolate and weary vocals do a great job of keeping the track afloat from there. And then oddly enough, in the last leg, we have a lot of vocal and horn harmonies that are reminiscent of like an early Grizzly Bear LP and are pulled off very well. From here, we have a few explosive treats on the back end that I like. HAIRDRYER, which also has a kind of slow burn going for its progression, but the rhythms are just mad. The speed and the tightness, but also the ease with which they flow just show how essential Tom Skinner was for this project. All of the guitar passages from there, solid, great, but the build into Thom Yorke's final refrain of "Look at all the pretty lights," fantastic, stellar. Easily one of the catchiest moments on this LP. And then We Don't Know What Tomorrow Brings shows the band going in almost a new wave or post-punk direction with the grooves and ferocity coming off the bass and the synths. There's a decent hook to it, but a lot like You Will Never Work in Television Again, much of the song is fueled off of its very powerful and raw performance and energy, and it works. To sum things up, I would say that this album is a bit of a mixed bag, but a good mixed bag. While a lot of the tracks here may vary pretty widely in terms of like instrumental palette and stuff like that, a lot of the guitar work and drums, as well as Greenwood's arrangements and Thom Yorke's vocals, do tie things up effectively enough to where this album is a pretty consistent listen. Not to mention a lot of those linear song structures and the song writing and performances and production are solid across the record too. Really as good as anything that you would hear on any modern Radiohead record. There were just a handful of tracks that I thought were merely just okay, and the closer was especially off in my opinion. But yeah, I would say this record is a pretty essential listen for any Radiohead fan, and I would easily give it a decent 7. Transition, have you given this thing a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, the smile of forever.